My next set of questions comes from Unworshipediety, and he first wants to know, what are your thoughts on eugenics? Should we explore it again? Well, this is one of those questions that gets you into the trouble that Heruka got into, because it doesn't really matter if your ideas are held by a certain set of scientists. There'll be another set of scientists that another group of people will cite, and it just starts huge arguments. But I will say a few things about eugenics that I think people should think about. One aspect of eugenics that deals solely with skin color that I think we should look at as a whole on the planet is that people without large amounts of melanin in their skin, white people, should probably look to moving more northward or southward, more towards the poles. And people who are darker skinned should move closer to the equator if they can, to let all the lighter skinned people move to the poles. And I'm not talking like a forced moving, like some regime just like uses the military to move people. I'm talking like over the next 1,000 years, because incidents of certain types of cancers are more prevalent in white people that live closer to the equator. And I know that Florida seems like a great place to live and go retire to, but perhaps we should all be living in Vermont if we're white, because we have less of a chance of getting cancer there. And maybe if we just educate people on cancer risks, they will move away from those places that they are more likely to get cancer from. And that's kind of a eugenics stance that I think some people would find horrifying, like, oh, you're gonna tell all the white people to move north. You know, that's just as bad as telling all the African Americans to move back to Africa. And I think I might have actually included them in this, because Africa has people could go to the South Pole if they were. Eugenics is just something that it's very hard to talk about on YouTube, because you're always kind of worried about that one heckler, you know. But really, I think that eugenics is something that we carry out naturally in some cases. And I think we're getting the best mix, unfortunately, from the situations that we have now, where some people will not date outside of their race and some people do. And I think that creates the biggest amount of genetic diversity that we could have, to have some people mix and some people stay with one inbred line of genes, you know. It could be that one big bacteria comes across the planet and kills everyone but the people who have sickle cell anemia. And I would hate to see sickle cell anemia bred out of the human population because, you know, it was resistant against malaria. It could be the one thing that saves us as a race, as a species, you know. Any little trait, you don't know which one it's going to be. So, you do need those race fucktards who think that their race is superior and they only want to date their own race. You need some of those, and then you need some people who are more liberal to mix and create new variations. And I think we could probably do it with less hatred, but I see the world as being a pretty good mix of what it's going to take to keep us alive should some superbug come along and want to kill us all. And that's about all I have for eugenics this morning. His second question is, given the advance of medicine, should we eventually eliminate all mental disorders? Note some people are only productive because of mental disorders. Yes or no, why or why not? I would say we should move towards eliminating as many mental disorders as we can. And this is just speaking as someone who majors in psychology. It would be a good thing. And for any sort of productivity or artistic qualities that you think are coming from mental disorders, people can add those later. You know, they can add constraints to their art. You know, if you can only make good art if you aren't thinking about things, then you can do something like put an alarm clock on your head and set it to go off all the time, you know, to interrupt your train of thought, and then you can make simple art, you know. But yeah, I think we should move towards better mental health. And not worry so much about whether or not people are going to be productive. Also, the same, just for me, the same holds for education. You know, I don't think we should worry about whether or not there are going to be people to be deep fat fried technicians at McDonald's to give you your fries. There's always going to be people who will work menial jobs and be productive. And yeah, you can't have, you know, 10 chiefs and 1 Indian, but I don't see any shortage of Indians, and I see a great need for more chiefs, more intelligent chiefs with better mental health and more education. Question number 3. A plane crashes in the snow and your parents / family / friends die. The snow will keep the bodies cold. Do you eat them for survival, or do you leave the crash site not knowing what dangers lurk and hope for the best? Now see, this is a question that reminds me of a G.I. Joe episode, that cartoon. At the end of the cartoon, there was always the knowing is half the battle moment. And I remember one day where they had a kid who was playing soccer, and he had a choice between an apple and a candy bar. And the kid who ate the candy bar had a quick burst of energy, but then he was tired for the rest of the game. The kid who ate the apple was kind of like, it was like the tortoise and the hare. That kid won the game by having more endurance than the other. And the whole time I was watching that, I was thinking, why can't you do both? Why can't you eat both the apple and the candy bar? You know, then you'd have the short burst of energy and the endurance later. You know? So, your question is, do I eat them, or do I leave and try to find civilization and hope for the best? And my answer is, if they're already dead, and I can't find any other source of food, why not cook them up, pack them up, pack yourself a lunch, and then head towards civilization. And then maybe, if you label the Ziploc bags right on all your people sandwiches, maybe you could give the families something to bury, Just saying. If you don't get too hungry. Question number 4. Who's hotter, Lilith or Eve? And why? Well, both are fictitious and both are even fictitious, both are dead. Not into either types of girls, the fictitious ones or the dead ones. But if there were equivalent live real girls and they had the characteristics of Lilith or Eve, I would take the girl that was more like Lilith, because Eve created a lot of drama with that apple thing, and I like people around me to create as much drama as my throw pillows. Those are the kind of girls that I like to be around. You know, the kind that can just, like, watch a movie and not start a fight in the middle of the movie. And hopefully this didn't go 15 minutes, because I still don't have the cap lifted.